Hi, welcome to Mocha Wave Talks. Here at Mocha Wave Publishing, we believe that every girl who reads has her own magic. I'm really excited today because I get to talk with Mel Finefrock, superstar and author of Patchwork Poetry, which I'm holding up right now. This is her book of poetry, which I'm really picky about poetry, but this has been one of my favorite works of poetry because it just captures so many feelings and sensual experiences. So I'm really happy to be here with Mel. And would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I've never done this before, so I'm really excited. It feels kind of like a rite of passage, and it feels special to be doing that with you.
Okay.
Um, so again, I'm Mel Finefrock. Patchwork Poetry is my first book, and actually, book number 2 is on its way. It's done being written, but right now I'm making the chapbook circuit, and so I'm still submitting. I have been rejected 11 times, but I'm very determined, so stay tuned. Um, I have been writing since I was a kid. I think some of my earliest memories were like when I was in class, supposed to be taking notes, but since I write in Braille, nobody knows if I'm going to be writing about mermaids. So, and that is what I wrote about. So I didn't do it all the time, I promise. Um,
And if anybody's know, there's a kind of an in joke going on there a little bit, maybe. Just to let y'all know, at one time I was Mel Finefrock's professor. She
Yep,
taught
you
me
beat me
how to
to it.
she taught me how to teach, basically.
Did not. You were already awesome. Yeah, so actually, I went to the University of North Texas and I had Ms. Cuyler my freshman year for Ret Comp. And so, but she was the cool teacher. She's like, okay, so we're gonna analyze the themes in ta-da film. And the films were The Hitchhiker from The Twilight Zone. And I was
Oh,
like, this is amazing.
aw.
And we did like she like would put us in groups and we did like collaborative writing and editing sessions, which I ate up. I wanted to be an editor and I went on to be an editor for a time after that. So that class felt like really foundational for me in a lot of ways.
Me too.
Um, yeah. So like your first Ret Comp class and my first like semester in college. So we were kind of both in parallel that way. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
fun how.
I was a new teacher then, and the thing is, we learn from our students, just like I learned from my beta readers, right? You learn a lot, you get feedback, and you find out what works and what doesn't work.
I also am blind, surprise. Um, and I read and write Braille. So even though that book that Ms. Cuyler was holding was in print, I wrote it in Braille and then like translated it to print. So that makes for a really fun, like creative process. And my blindness and like my disability experience wind up shaping a lot of my perspective as a writer. So whether you're reading like my book or you're like reading my other poetry on Facebook or DeviantArt, my disability experience and just um, also sometimes others' disability experiences, they come up and inspire a lot of content. So I think the thing that's most important about literature is empathy.
Yes.
Um, I got a review on Amazon once where this anonymous person said, I mean, I'm sure it's special if you have a disability and all, but since I don't, like, this is nothing special. And it's like,
What?
that's really super ableist. And they were
From
missing the point
from Patchwork
because,
Poetry? Is he talking from
yeah, isn't that
really?
sad? Well, trolls exist.
Oh,
And so,
that's really
you
weird.
know, it is weird, but it would be like if I read The Color Purple and said I didn't care about it because I was white. Like that's just evil.
It is.
So
And the thing of it is when I'm reading your poetry, it's your own experience, but I think if you have any kind of empathy at all, we all can relate to parts of the poetry, right? No, right.
Yeah,
And then we can
or
learn
learn
from the
from
other
it.
part. Like I felt like I was being pulled, like, oh, finally someone understands what it's like to feel this way. Like I really felt that reflection of a certain part of me. So I think
Yeah,
when you can, and that's why I think that it's weird because good writing is universal writing. And I feel like that's what you've done. You have the voice of, you've captured the voice of the unheard, right? The people that have been quieted, have been repressed. And now through their connection to nature, their connection to their emotions, they find an outlet for that. So I really like.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And thank you so much. Like, I was kind of floored when, like, anytime you've said, "Oh, you're one of my favorite poets," because I'm like, you studied Milton and he's supposed to be really good. So I felt very humbled and honored by that.
I'm a little different. You know this. This is like duh. But I'm a little different as an English teacher than some teachers.
Yeah.
Um, I don't just like things because people say you're supposed to like them. I like
Hmm.
them because they really speak to me as a human.
Me too.
And so that's the same way I felt like with my writing. I'm not going to write this just because they say this is the way you're supposed to write. I'm going to write it because that's the way my heart and my mind, my soul's going.
Amen.
There you go. And that's where you're going to find your readers, right? Your readers are going to be the ones that align, the ones that do appreciate are going to be the ones that align with that.
Exactly.
So, and I know that I've actually had, because I wrote my book because and I've shared this already, is that because my anxiety, and
Hmm.
the depression that I was feeling, and I've had a lot of other, like some of my, I've had students say this is my favorite book, and that's because they were the ones I wrote this for, young women who have anxiety, who need a voice to find their own, their abilities, their powers, to feel like they are enough. And so
Yeah.
I think you'll find that too, is that when as the readers who you've written that for are going to feel that, right? They're going to know that they're going to, just like I have, like your poem has spoken to me and pulled me out of my shell. So I really appreciate that.
I appreciate you. And I love that the conversation is like seamlessly flowing in this direction because I was thinking back on the like empathy piece and going, this is what it is to be an intercessor. That's like how you get into the story and, either learn from the characters or identify with them, engage with them, and how things come alive. The empathy, the intercessing is born of empathy, I feel like,
That,
having experienced your book. Well, I mean, and that's how you know you got it right too, is when someone like I was talking with a friend who is a visual artist yesterday, and she was describing her work to me for a project. And when I said, it's like the picture is saying this, and she's like, exactly, exactly. And that's how you know you got it right, is if the person reflects it back to you.
yes,
So it's a very liberating feeling when that happens.
it is. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about patchwork poetry, or do you want to tell us one of the poems, read us one of the poems?
Sure. Yeah. So, patchwork poetry is kind of, um, well, it's exactly what the title sounds. So, a friend had said at the time when she beta read my manuscript, she's like, it's like a beautiful poetical patchwork quilt. And I was like, that's it. That's the title. Because I couldn't think of it. It was like I had built a miniature biography, like representing like different things that were salient or important to me. Um, and but it wasn't the whole biography, it was just like little snippets, like a little snapshot. So it truly is that. And there are three sections of the book. And the first is Aspire, which is about like poems that are with me and myself.
Mm.
And then the second one is Inspire, and that's with people in my life, like anywhere from strangers to a disabled student I cared for to a close friend, actually two close friends, and then a complete stranger who was playing piano at one of my older sister's like obnoxious house parties. And I was like, okay, so I'm hiding in a room and you're playing piano and we're both being antisocial and we're not the life of the party, but we're the soul.
Oh.
So that's the second part because like I get a lot of my inspiration in poetry from other people. It might be like a conversation or a moment or something that we didn't even have a direct exchange, but an exchange happened.
Mm.
Um, and then the third section is called Evolve, and this is a little sad to talk about right now. My book is a little dated because I published it 8 years ago. But I wrote it that third section about a relationship with a former partner who I was with for a very, very long time. We were childhood friends, and the section actually opens up with a memory and then saying, "But we had broken up." Um, and then it shows like how we came together, how I had an accident and that kind of brought him back into my life. So it's very beautiful. It was like trying to depict how the relationship cycle evolved. So yeah, there are 15 poems in all. And then like at the back of the book, I was an editor at the time. I was trying to find work after graduating, but even like 25 years post ADA, folks did not want to hire a blind person. So I created work for myself as an editor and transcriptionist. And so I was so proud of my clients that I was like, you know what? I have seen them promote each other and promote me. Why don't I put them in the back and just like do teeny tiny little review blurbs? So that was kind of fun. But yeah, so my book is available on Amazon both as paperback and as Kindle. And then writing, um, my writing as it's matured, is available on DeviantArt and most recently Facebook. DeviantArt has some screen reader accessibility issues, so I'm not able to use it anymore. So, but yeah, and I'm totally happy to read a couple poems from Patchwork Poetry. I really love the shape of words in Braille, especially, but there is something about, especially free verse poetry, when it's read aloud. And so I would be honored to share some with y'all today.
Yes, I would love to hear it.
Okay. Um, so this first one is called While at the Park. This is the opening poem in the book, and the poems were kind of written at different times, but it was the poem that I was like, that's it. I'm publishing the book. I'm going to do it. So I was on a swing set at the park and they do these like raised line warnings on the side so you can like read it with your fingers even though it's like in print. And I noticed that because of the width of the swing, they were doing line breaks in an interesting way. And I was like, aha, found poetry. And so then
Oh.
I wrote a poem from it.
Oh.
So here we go. Warning. This swing seat has been designed for use by children only. Tendrils of hair loosed from my ponytail tickle my smiling cheeks. A dense grove of trees reaches from the shadows toward the graying sky and its silver linings. The wind is cool as it sings past my ears, wafting the sweet perfume of dampened tan bark to my nose. I'm all limbs and joints and dreams of freedom. I'm flying, but I don't believe in defying the laws of physics. I work with them instead. I become the pendulum and hypnotize myself. Thank you.
Always when I read it, or now I'm hearing it, it's just like, yeah, that's why she's my favorite poet. You see
It
what
was such a cool moment.
it's such a cool moment, and you captured that so beautifully with that, here I'm gonna be an English teacher, very specific word choice and all of that, imagery, because like every sense you've captured that. Like the feeling of the hair against you, the coldness, the smell, right? The
Mm-hmm.
sight, the sounds. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, the senses are a big thing for me. So I was born with some vision, um, but my condition is progressive and it's
Mhm.
genetic, so I inherited it. And so I grew up in this beautifully, also sometimes painfully liminal space of like, cool, I'm not all the way sighted, I'm not all the way blind. So I have both perspectives. And I have a lot of visual memory. I also have just a tiny bit of vision, but it's for enjoyment purposes only. Like, it's
Oh,
not very usable or functional. So um
I remember in
I
class you used to say like there's some colors you could see or something. I was
yeah, yeah.
just like, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I remember when you would bring the colored paper and I'm like, it's pink or whatever.
I was like, I brought colored paper. I hope this is a color you actually can
That
perceive.
was fun. Oh
Like,
my
you're like, oh
gosh.
wow, yeah, like this paper. It looks like any other paper. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I'd be like, no, like regular paper is boring. See, I told y'all she was the cool teacher. So I I wound up from like a young age, not consciously associating senses with each other. And what that is called is synesthesia. And that means senses are a union of the senses, I think is how they say it. Um, and so like, if you hear like the song Purple Haze, they say Jimi Hendrix actually had synesthesia. So
Yeah.
specifically sound or music is chromesthesia. I have that. I have it with words, I have it with, lots of things. And so what inspired this next poem, which is very much about the senses concretely, is also about synesthesia. I realized that when I was drinking a cup of Earl Grey, just taking a break from an editing project, I'm like, why is this reminding me of the ocean? And then all of a sudden I get sucked back into the memory vortex.
I don't, there's something
So
about Earl Grey. I don't know. I always think of the ocean too. I don't know what it is.
I love that. I love that I'm not the only one. And like the fun thing is, so the drink London Fog, like the way Starbucks does it is, and I'm sure countless others, they do dairy of choice and vanilla syrup. But like at home, I just do dairy and whatever sweetener I have. Maybe it's stevia, maybe it's lavender syrup, maybe it's
Mm.
turbinado. And so I have taken also to putting a pinch of sea salt in my tea. It is really, really good. So y'all should
Okay.
try it.
I need to try this.
Just a pinch though.
Just a pitch. Okay.
Yes. So, with that introduction, I'm going to read a poem about the experience I had with Earl Grey. One sip of Earl Grey and the hot, earthy steam on my face suddenly turns to a cold, salty mist. I open my mind's eye and behold a memory from some 13 years ago of my 10-year-old self leaning up against the railing of a ferry, staring in wonder at the iron sea below, teeming with foam as it laps against the siding and reflects the overcast sky until they meet and merge at the horizon. After trying in vain to see my own reflection on the water's surface, I feel disappointed, but only momentarily so, for I am just as soon distracted by the beauty around me. Hindsight whispers that it matters not what I see, rather, it's how I see things that counts, and these visions are my reflection, not of my face, but of my soul. I glance down at my tiny hands gripping the railing, and once more they're grown up, illuminated by my open window, and lifting a well-worn mug to my expectant lips for another sip of Earl Grey. Thank you.
I love it. I feel shivers when I hear your poems. They're so
Thank
good.
you.
Yeah, so like, okay, just Emily Dickinson, just you can step aside.
Oh my goodness.
Go ahead to Amazon.com. Make sure you get your copy of Patchwork Poetry by Mel Finefrock, so you can read all of the wonderful poems that she has there. And keep watching and following. So just mainly following you on Facebook right now?
Yeah, I would say that's where I'm most active or where most of the new content gets posted.
Okay, so keep following because another book is going to be coming. It's
Yes.
coming.
We are going to manifest that it's coming.
We were all going to write letters and say this must happen.
I love it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mel, for joining us today.
It's been a joy. Thank you so much.
All righty. And look forward to seeing more from Mel and stay tuned for the next Mocha Wave Talk.